There is a man in a garage in Columbus, Ohio right now. It is Sunday afternoon. His phone has been on the workbench for 3 hours. He has not checked it once. His wife knows not to knock unless something is actually wrong. His kids have learned that when the garage door is down and the light is on underneath it, Dad is somewhere else. Somewhere they cannot follow. Somewhere he needs to be alone with whatever he is working on. He is rebuilding the carburetor on a 1972 Chevrolet C10 pickup. It is the third time he has had this particular carburetor apart. The first time he thought he had it figured out. The second time he realized he had been wrong about something fundamental. This time he is moving more slowly, checking each component carefully against the manual, not assuming anything, letting the problem tell him what it needs instead of telling the problem what he thinks the answer should be. He will be in there for another 2 hours at least. He does not mind. In fact, if you asked him right now whether he would rather be anywhere else on Earth, the honest answer would be no. Not at a bar with friends, not watching the game, not anywhere that involves other people and the particular kind of effort that other people require. This is not a story about a carburetor. It is a story about a particular kind of man and the particular kind of peace he finds in a place that most people would find uncomfortable, doing work that most people would find tedious, in a silence that most people would find unbearable. And once you understand what is actually happening in that garage, you will understand something important about a type of man that this country has never been particularly good at talking about honestly. If you spend any real time around men who work on cars not casually, not as a weekend novelty, but seriously, with real knowledge and real commitment, you begin to notice something that nobody talks about directly, but that is impossible to miss once you see it. These men are almost always quiet, not unfriendly, not cold, not incapable of conversation or warmth or genuine connection, but fundamentally, constitutionally oriented towards solitude in a way that sets them apart from the general population. They are the men who leave parties early, who prefer a phone call to a group text, who can spend an entire Saturday in their own company without experiencing anything that resembles loneliness, who, when the house empties out and the noise stops, feel something that other people might call relief, but that they would simply call normal. The garage is not where these men go to be alone. The garage is where these men go to be themselves. And understanding the difference between those two things is the beginning of understanding who they actually are and why the work matters to them in the way that it does. Psychology has spent considerable time studying the difference between introversion and shyness, because the two are consistently and incorrectly treated as the same thing. Shyness is a fear of social judgment. It is anxiety about how other people perceive you, a reluctance to engage because engagement feels dangerous or threatening. Introversion is something entirely different. It is a neurological orientation toward the internal world. It is the simple structural fact that social interaction costs energy rather than generating it, and that solitude restores what social engagement depletes. The researcher Susan Cain, who spent years studying introversion and its relationship to creativity and deep work, found that introverts consistently outperform extroverts on tasks that require sustained concentration, careful analysis, and the kind of patient, methodical problem-solving that does not benefit from collaboration or external input. They are not worse at working with people. They are simply better, measurably and significantly better, at working alone on problems that reward depth and patience over speed and social energy. Diagnosing a failing engine is exactly this kind of task. It requires sustained concentration over long periods without external reinforcement. It requires the ability to hold multiple variables in working memory simultaneously and cross-reference them against a body of knowledge built through direct physical experience. It requires patience with ambiguity, the willingness to sit with a problem that has not yet revealed its answer and resist the urge to force a conclusion before the evidence supports one. These are not skills that extroverts lack entirely. They are skills that introverts have developed, often without realizing it, through a lifetime of preferring depth over breadth and solitude over stimulation. Think about what mechanical work actually demands of the person doing it. It demands presence. Not the performed presence of a meeting or a social gathering, where a significant portion of your attention is devoted to managing how you are being perceived by the people around you. Real presence, the kind where the only thing that matters is the problem in front of you and whether you are paying close enough attention to understand what it is telling you. It demands honesty. A carburetor does not care about your credentials or your confidence or the story you tell yourself about how good you are with your hands. It either works or it does not. The feedback is immediate, physical, and completely indifferent to your feelings about it. For a man who has spent his professional life in environments where success is ambiguous and feedback is filtered through office politics and other people's agendas, this honesty is not just refreshing. It is, in a way that is difficult to overstate, deeply and genuinely relieving. It demands silence, not the uncomfortable silence of a conversation that is stalled, but the productive silence of a mind fully engaged with a problem that is worthy of its attention. The silence of the garage is not empty, it is full. Full of the sounds the engine makes when you turn it over, full of the particular resistance of a bolt that is not quite right, full of the information that the work is constantly providing to anyone paying close enough attention to receive it. These demands are not burdens to the introverted man. They are precisely what he came for. They are the conditions under which he does his best thinking, his best work, and his most honest living. There is a man named Gary from outside of Memphis. He is 58 years old. He has been working on cars since he was 14, when his uncle handed him a wrench in a driveway and said, "Figure it out." He works in insurance now, managing a team of 12 people, spending most of his days in meetings and on calls and navigating the particular social complexity of a mid-sized office where everyone has an opinion and nobody agrees on anything for very long. He goes to the garage every night after dinner. Not for hours, sometimes just 45 minutes. But every night, without exception, unless something prevents it. His wife stopped questioning it years ago. She has come to understand that the man who comes back inside after 45 minutes in the garage is a different man than the one who went out there, and that the difference is worth the time. When asked what the garage gives him that the rest of his day does not, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said that at work he is always performing, always managing how he comes across, what he says, how he says it, what it will mean to the person hearing it. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every meeting is a performance. Every interaction requires him to be aware, simultaneously, of what he is saying and how it is landing and what it might mean for the relationships and dynamics that he has to navigate tomorrow and the day after. In the garage, he said, there is no audience. There is just him and the car and the problem does not need him to be anything other than honest and attentive and willing to keep trying until he gets it right. He said that the garage is the only place in his life where he does not have to manage himself, and that after a day of managing everything else, that is worth more than he can adequately explain to someone who has not felt it. This points to something that psychologists who study introversion have identified as one of its most consistent and least discussed features: the exhaustion of self-monitoring. Introverted people, particularly those who work in social or managerial roles, spend an enormous amount of cognitive and emotional energy throughout the day monitoring and adjusting their own behavior in response to social cues. They are watching the room. They are reading the people around them. They are calibrating their responses in real time to manage the impressions they are making and the dynamics they are navigating. This is not dishonesty. It is the social competence that allows introverted people to function effectively in environments that were largely designed by and for extroverts. But it is exhausting in a way that is qualitatively different from the exhaustion of physical or intellectual work. It does not respond to rest in the same way. It responds to solitude. The garage eliminates self-monitoring entirely. There is no room to read. There are no impressions to manage. There is no social dynamic requiring calibration or careful navigation. There is only the work, and the man, and the honest feedback loop between them. For the introverted man who has spent 8 or 10 hours managing himself in public, stepping into the garage is not just relaxation. It is the cessation of a particular kind of effort that never fully stops anywhere else in his life. There is also something in the relationship between mechanical work and the introverted preference for depth over breadth that deserves careful attention, because it explains why these men do not just dabble, they go deep. They go all the way down. Introverts are not people who are interested in fewer things. They are people who are interested in things more deeply. They would rather know one subject thoroughly than know 10 subjects superficially. They would rather have 3 close friendships than 30 casual acquaintances. They would rather spend 4 hours on one problem than 40 minutes on 10. This orientation toward depth is not a limitation or a deficiency. It is a cognitive style. And it is one that mechanical work rewards more generously than almost any other pursuit available to an adult man in contemporary American life. A man who decides to understand how an engine works does not reach the bottom of that subject. The deeper he goes, the more there is. The carburetor leads to the fuel system, leads to the ignition, leads to the timing, leads to the relationship between all of these systems and the specific wear patterns of this particular engine with its particular history and its particular quirks. There is always more to know. There is always a deeper level of understanding available to the man willing to pursue it patiently and honestly. For the introverted mind that finds shallow engagement unsatisfying and deep engagement nourishing, this inexhaustibility is not overwhelming. It is the whole point. It is why he keeps coming back. Now consider the solitary dimension of this more carefully, because solitude and introversion are related, but not identical. And the distinction matters for understanding what is actually happening in these garages across America on Sunday afternoons. Introversion is a neurological preference. Solitude is a practice. And the men who work on cars have typically developed a relationship with solitude that goes beyond preference into something closer to necessity, a genuine understanding, built through years of direct experience, that certain kinds of thinking and certain kinds of restoration simply cannot happen in the presence of other people, no matter how much he cares about those people. The garage has a legitimizing function in American culture that is worth acknowledging. It is socially acceptable to be in the garage. Nobody questions it the way they might question a man who simply sat alone in a room doing nothing visible. The work justifies the solitude in a culture that is not always comfortable with men who need to be alone and is not always sure what to make of them when they say so directly. The garage gives the introverted man permission to take the solitude he needs without having to explain or defend it. The car is the excuse. The solitude is the point. There is also the matter of what mechanical work does to the experience of time, and why this matters specifically to the introverted man who spends most of his working life in environments that fragment attention rather than focus it. The psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying what he called flow, the mental state in which a person is so fully absorbed in a challenging activity that self-consciousness disappears and time distorts. He found that people report their highest levels of happiness not during leisure or rest, but during activities that demand their full attention and match their skill level precisely. Not too easy, not too hard. Right at the edge of what they are capable of. Mechanical work produces this state with unusual reliability for the man who has developed genuine skill at it. The problem is real. The feedback is immediate. The skill required is substantial but achievable. There is no part of the mind left over to worry about the meeting tomorrow or the conversation that did not go well last week. There is only the work, and the man, and the particular satisfaction of a mind that has finally found something worthy of its full attention. For the introverted man who spends most of his day in a state of fragmented, socially managed partial attention, this experience of complete absorption is not just pleasant. It is restorative in a way that nothing else quite matches. There is a darker and more honest dimension to this story that deserves acknowledgement, because the complete picture requires it. Not every man who retreats to the garage is doing it from a place of healthy self-knowledge and intentional restoration. Some of it is avoidance. Some of it is the use of legitimate solitude as a shield against the harder work of being present in relationships that require more than he is currently willing to give. The man who is always in the garage, who is more comfortable with his engine than with his wife, who has made the work into a reason to be unavailable to the people who need him, that man is using the garage in a way that will cost him things he cannot get back. The line between restorative solitude and avoidant isolation is real, and it is not always easy to see clearly from the inside. The man who is honest with himself about which side of that line he is standing on is in a considerably better position than the man who has stopped asking the question altogether. But it is equally important not to pathologize what is, in the vast majority of cases, a genuinely healthy and necessary practice. Most men who work on cars alone are not hiding from their lives. They are maintaining the internal resources that allow them to show up for their lives. The garage is not where they go to disappear. It is where they go to come back. So the next time you see a light on under a garage door on a Sunday evening, or hear the sound of a ratchet coming from a driveway on a Saturday afternoon, or notice that a man you know goes quiet in a particular way when he talks about the project he is working on, consider what you are actually looking at. You are looking at a man who has figured out something that a lot of people spend their entire lives searching for. He has found a place where the noise stops, where the performance stops, where the self-monitoring that costs him so much every single day finally, completely stops, where the only thing required of him is honesty and attention, and the willingness to stay with a problem until it gives up its answer. He is not hiding. He is not being antisocial. He is not wasting his Sunday on something that does not matter. He is doing the thing that his particular mind and his particular nervous system genuinely need him to do. He is being, without apology or explanation or performance, exactly who he is. And in the quiet of that garage, with grease on his hands and a problem in front of him that is real and solvable and entirely his to figure out, he is more fully himself than he is almost anywhere else in his life. The carburetor is not the point. It never was. The point is the silence. The point is the honesty. The point is the particular peace that comes to a particular kind of man when the world finally stops asking him to be something other than what he is, when the performance ends and the real work begins, and the only audience is the engine, which does not care about anything except whether he is paying attention. And somewhere in Columbus, Ohio, a man is still at his workbench. The light is still on under the garage door. He has not checked his phone. His wife is inside. His kids are inside. The rest of his life is inside, waiting for him, and he will return to it shortly, restored and quieter and more himself than he was 3 hours ago. But right now, he is exactly where he needs to be.